Okay, so it's honey harvest day. This is our 4th year, so we've learned a lot. We continue to learn every day. None of our other colonies were very successful in terms of producing honey. We got maybe 5 pounds from what I had nicknamed our lazy hive. This colony, we're hoping that for the first time we get 100 pounds out of a single colony, but we'll have to see how that works. I know one of these boxes was empty a few weeks ago, so if one of those is empty, I don't know that we'll have 100 pounds. So I'm just going to kind of inventory each of the boxes first and then start shaking the bees off so we can take them to harvest. A lot of people ask why we don't use smoke. When we go to harvest honey, we don't want smoke flavored honey, so on honey harvest day we typically don't use any smoke at all. You can, but we just prefer to avoid it. And you know, there's a lot of other ways where you can get the bees away from the boxes. You know, I've seen somebody use a leaf blower. You have the bee filter things you can put on. I just prefer, since we don't have that many colonies, I just shake the bees off. So let's inventory these 4 boxes, see how much honey we have.
So just by way of commentary on this colony, this was a swarm that we caught earlier this year. We actually got this one 25 feet up in a tree, which was the first time we had ever done that. And I say we, but I had nothing to do with it. I was actually out of town, and Troy actually went and got it out of the tree by himself.
With a bee vacuum.
With the bee vacuum. And amazingly, this has been our most prolific in terms of honey colony that we've had. The one that is just to the right of the camera by 2.
Okay, this first box. Holy cow.
Clearly weighs a lot.
It's heavy. There might be more than 30 pounds in there. Oh my goodness.
Anyway, as I was saying, the colony that's 2 to the right, as you're looking at it from this one, that was the only colony we had that survived the winter. And it also was a swarm that we got fairly late in the season last year, and it really has not done a whole lot. Now,
all right, we got 30 pounds in this one.
To be fair, we did end up robbing that one of some brood frames to try to have some of our other colonies that were queenless create queens. So we did sort of sabotage it a little, but this one far exceeded that one in terms of honey production. And without this one, we would have very little honey for this season. So we're very, very grateful for this 25, we call it the 25-foot hive.
Lots of propolis on this one, but I don't think there's any honey in that box. They just didn't like this one. I don't know why. We tried it up high, we tried it down low, or either that or just the honey flow was over, so. Alright, this one's heavy. Whoa, that might be more than 30 pounds too, so we're going to be pretty close. So we'll have to see. So we'll turn it off a little bit. We need to add some beetle traps to this, get it closed back up, and then I'll shake a few frames.
Do you want to show the beetle traps that we have?
Yeah, so we use these more permanent ones. So you put oil in the outside. Is it apple vinegar?
Red wine vinegar.
Red wine vinegar, that's what attracts the beetles. And so the beetles smell this and they walk down into here and they drown in the oil.
Show the top of what it looks like.
So you have a...
You can see there's holes for them to go down inside the one that has the oil but not the vinegar.
But we have not seen hardly a single hive beetle this year, so I'm not even sure these are going to trap any, but the mistake we made last year, it was a bad year. We harvested honey and we didn't put our traps in as we harvested the honey, and it was a disaster last year. So good news is we're going in right now into the fall with 5 colonies, so that's the most we've ever had.
So these just, go ahead and show. So these just go down on the outside between the box and the first frame. We put 4 in the top. We don't put any in the bottom since we tend not to go down into the bottom. to do much inspection. We tend to just kind of let them be down there. So we put 4 of them in the top, and then each week or 2 weeks when we check them, we look to see how many hive beetles in there, and if we need to refresh the oil because there's a lot of hive beetles in there, then we'll just dump the oil out. And oftentimes the vinegar can just be reused. As long as it hasn't gone bad, we'll just reuse the vinegar for a few weeks or even a month or so, and then we'll clean them all out and redo them until it really gets to be cold enough where the hive beetles don't really come anymore. We're just a little paranoid because we lost 2 colonies last year to hive beetles.
There were just so many last year.
There were so many, and they leave a terrible smell in the hive, and they leave this slimy film all over. So between the slimy film and the smell, the bees just hate them. So we actually saw one of our colonies last year actually leave the whole hive. All of them abscond from the hive because the hive beetles were so bad, and so we're a little paranoid this year. But the thing that we do have this year that we didn't last year is they are up on our deck. So they are raised up as opposed to last year. I don't know if you can see with the shadows, but last year that's where we had our colonies. And so hive beetles need to lay eggs in the dirt. So because they were right on the dirt last year, they had plenty of room, whereas now we're probably, I don't know, 6 or 8, 10 feet off the ground. And so we're hoping that that might also help with the hive beetles.
So you want to show what a full frame of honey looks like?
So this is, that's a fully capped frame of honey. The white on the outside is the bees will put wax on the outside, and that indicates that it is the right moisture content and it is ready to be used.
Still a little bit open over here.
Still a little bit open, but for the most part that honey is just ready to go, ready for us to steal and eat. We call it liquid gold.
Just shake off the few bees and we'll go from there.
It's ready to go. Yikes. All right, so we are now over at our friend's house who have a convenient honey house for us to borrow. So we are now cutting off the wax coating that the bees put on to indicate that the honey is at the right moisture level and ready for consumption. So you can see that he's just taking a little bit of the outside off. This is a frame that we have used before, so the bees have built it out just a little bit, so it's a little bit thicker.
It's made a mess.
And that makes it really easy to take the serrated knife and just slide off the wax cappings from the outside. So we'll do both sides of this frame, and the wax cappings just fall into this bucket. It has a wire frame in the bottom so the honey will drip through, and we will filter that and take the honey out of the wax cappings as well. So once you have second year super frames, where the first year you put in 10 and let the bees build those out, and then the next year you do 9, and so they build them out a little thicker, which makes cutting the wax from the outside so much easier. Less work to have to do the little, what do you call that little tool? Little mini scraper. Anyway, so this is now ready to go into the extractor. And we got a hot tip from someone somewhere along the road that when you're done taking off all the wax, that before you put it in the extractor, you flip it upside down, because the honey, I don't know if you could see on the video, has started to kind of drain down a little bit. So you flip it upside down to keep it from dripping all over the floor. And then it goes inside the, oh, there goes my water bottle. Sorry for that loud noise. Goes inside the extractor. And they have, we'll have 6 frames in here at one time. You can see the honey dripping off there. Yum. Don't you wish you could just like lick that right off there. So good. Anyway, so we'll do one more. We have 5 loaded in here now. We'll load the 6th one in here, and then we will show what it looks like when it's spinning. Alright, so we have our 6 frames loaded in here, so we're going to go ahead and start the extractor. And we do it pretty slowly at first, especially where your frames are really full with honey, because we learned the hard way. I don't remember if it was last year or the year before. We got it spinning a little too fast, too quickly, and what happened was it kind of made some of our frames kind of fall apart. So we've learned that we'll just do it a little slowly, let the bulk of the weight of the honey flow out, and then once the bulk of the honey flows out, then you can spin it a little faster so that the residual kind of gets flung out to the side. So when you're doing this, don't do what we did. Learn from our mistake.
I don't know if it's high enough that it's even flipping any out yet.
I guess that should be. Yeah, you can see it in the bottom.
Now it is.
Can you see the shine? Yeah. I think you can see the shine on the video.
Residual honey from there.
So but yeah, you can see my reflection in the bottom. So there is honey down there. And the fact that it was rocking a little bit means that we didn't do a very good job getting the same weight frames in each section. So if you have 6 equally weighted frames, then it tends not to rock your extractor. If you have some that are lighter in honey than others, then it's kind of like a washing machine. It will just be out of balance and you'll get a lot more rocking. We'll keep letting that spin for a minute, and then we'll show you what the empty frames look like when it's been spun out. Okay, we've now ramped this up pretty much to full speed. So we are going to open the gate on the bottom and let it all flow out. So this is going into a filter. I should have lifted that out. Here's the filter. You can see that's just, it sits in the top of the bucket. And so you will get some wax in here, you'll get some bee parts, you'll get, you know, just whatever kind of comes off the frames. And so this filter, what we like to do is we like to filter it enough to get the parts out that you don't want, like wax and bee parts, but to keep in as much of the pollen as we can, because that has a lot of the anti-allergy properties.
And flavor.
And it has a lot of flavor. And so we try to filter it the least amount possible to keep as much of that in as we can. So that's 6 frames right there flowing down through the filter, and we've got lots more to go. All those boxes ready to go. Okay, so now that these are out, they weigh nothing, and you can see, hopefully, if I kind of tilt it, that all the honey's out. It kind of has a little bit of a shine to it still from the honey residue, and so we will actually put these back in the hive, right? Is that what we're going to do this year? We've tried different things. We'll probably put these back on top of the hive and let the honeybees just clean off the residual of the honey, and then we'll store them for the winter for next year. So we did much better this year The frame stayed in good shape. We didn't spin it too fast, and so these will be ready to go for next year for them to start building. Not me. So you can see our bucket down here. Most of the honey has gone through, and you can see what's in the bottom are just little pieces of wax and kind of mostly wax pieces that get caught by the filter, and so that will just continue to kind of drain as we do more and more, and the honey is all in the bottom bucket below it. So we'll show a picture of that when we're all done.
Okay, the harvesting work's done. Here are the 2 buckets of honey. I think you can see the lines of honey, you know, right about there and right about there. So maybe 7 gallons. I don't know. It might be a little lighter than that in those 2 buckets. So that'd be about 84 pounds. And then around here, I think you can kind of see the honey line on here. So this is the bucket of cappings that we cut off, and you know, they're most of the way drained. There's still some draining to go. I can still see a lot of honey in there, and so we'll let that drain a couple days, but I don't think there's a gallon down there, and so once this drains, then we'll put it out for the bees to clean the honey caps. And we've put the boxes out there for them to clean. I'll show you that in a second. Okay, we put the honey frames out there about an hour ago, so the bees have gone, they've found it. This is, I don't know, maybe 150 feet from where our colonies are. A lot of people really get worried about doing this because they say the bees get really aggressive, and they do get a little aggressive around here, but we don't really have a lot of trouble with them on the boxes, you know, robbing and everything else. So. But they've started working, and I think it's going to get a little busier between now and the end of the day. Okay, this is the last piece of the puzzle in terms of the bees cleaning stuff up. I just wanted to show you, this is just a sticky mess. You know, see how it sticks to my fingers? This is what it's like. I mean, this stuff is just drenched in honey, and I put it out for the bees, and they clean it up into a flaky mess, so none of the honey goes unused. So I'll show you this. This is kind of the before picture, and then I'll show you the during when they're cleaning it up, and then the after. Okay, so now you can see just the bees are really working on the wax cappings, and you can kind of see there's mounds and everything else, but when they're done with it, it'll be just a flaky, dry, honey-free pile of wax. So it'll take them most of the day to do it, but they'll do a great job cleaning it off. Alright, I wanted to show you what this stuff was like after the bees were done with it. As you can see now, I mean, there's just no honey. It's like flakes. They've cleaned up all the honey. I mean, there's a little sticky to it, but nothing like it was before. So yeah, it's amazing. They're amazing little workers. Okay, the long delayed day has arrived. Because we were using friends' equipment, we kind of rushed our honey harvest, and so it was a little wetter than it should be. Wet honey you want to change for 2 reasons. One is the honey's more diluted because it has more water in it, so it tastes even better if it's a little drier. But number two, if it's too wet, it'll ferment in the bottles and the honey won't last. So we put the honey into a small closed room with a dehydrator and have sucked the moisture out. And so now we finally arrived to where we are bottling the honey. And as you can see, we've bottled a few, and all of our bottles over here. Long way. So, all right, we're all done. There's a few bottles that aren't shown that have already found their final home, but altogether we have about 93 pounds, which isn't a lot, but when you consider it was pretty much from one colony, that's a pretty good take. So hopefully next year we'll start with a few more colonies and hopefully have a record harvest. Until next year.